Hello, welcome to another monthly review meeting from me and Jason Bach. And I'm going to be doing stuff from March 2020 in this video. Not a lot this time. In fact, I don't think there's any movies on the list, but I think I got only 4 things to go through in this month. But actually, there's a 5th. If you follow me on Twitter, Jason Bach, over there is my drum set, which you can't see, but I posted a bunch of pictures recently of me changing all the heads on the drums. I've never done that before, and ever since really I got half of the original set and then I built on throughout the years, I don't think I've ever changed any of the heads on them, which is really bad. And man, do drums get disgusting inside. But finally went through that, took a day off on Friday and spent basically the whole day just completely redoing them all. And I haven't had the time yet to actually sit down and play them. I'm almost like I don't want to touch them because it's so clean and pristine now. It's like I just kind of like hit a couple, and then again, of course, now I start seeing the little hits on the heads, and I'm like, oh, it's all falling apart. But that was fun. That was good. Well, let's get into some of the things that I'm going to review in this episode. Okay, the first thing I'm going to go through is a book, and it's called How It Ends. How It Ends by Chris Impey, who I believe, I should put my glasses back on so I can actually read this. He's a distinguished professor in the astronomy department at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Okay, so this book is basically about really how everything ends. People, humanity, galaxies, the universe, everything. It's an interesting book. I think it was well done. A little quirky, and it's hard to describe why. I think his writing style was one. It wasn't odd. It's just the way he writes and the approach he takes to the material in his book. Like he prefaced every chapter with a little bit of a story, and it just, for some reason, it took me a little bit of time to get my head around why he was doing that. I've read other books by other authors on like the end of things. There's one called, I think The World After Us or something like that. No, that's not right. The World Without Us, I think it is. And then there's a couple other books I've read about deep time and, basically how the universe will completely just, like there'll be nothing, literally everything will decay so far into the future, and there won't be any light and everything will just be complete blackness. So there's your happy thought for the day. He does cover that too. It's a good book. I didn't find it as good as some of the other ones that I've read in the past, but it's not bad. So I'd say if I had to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I would say yeah, it's a good book. It's interesting. Next book on the list is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. Hopefully I said that right. Apparently he wrote the book The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I've never read. I've heard about, but I don't know what it's about. So, as you can tell, if you see the thickness of the book, it's a pretty thick book. I think it gets up to like around 700 pages. And it's this, drama horror story about a 7-year-old child who is with his mother, whose husband had died earlier, and she had now lived with a guy who had beat her, and she was, fleeing across the country, so to speak, and she was trying to make a living for them. And he ends up like going into these woods, and he goes missing for 6 days, and then he comes back, and he starts showing greater intellect, and he can actually start getting insight into people's lives. But why is this happening, and what's going on? I really wish I could say I like this book. I really, really wish I could, because it did start out interesting, and I thought the characters were interesting. It started to bother me because the kids in the book are like 7 or 8 years old, and I felt like they were acting like they were 10 or 12. I mean, and it sounds like a minute difference, but I don't think the characters really fit the age. I just didn't quite buy that. What started to really get to me is, I think about 2/3 in the way of the book, I went, this book needed to really have an editor, or an editor that would have said to the author, you need to trim this. I felt it started getting very repetitive. I felt it started getting just like, could you just get on with it, please? So I felt like, I didn't start to feel that until, like I said, about 2/3 of the way. And then I started thinking, man, this could have been trimmed a lot. And I think the story could have been tighter. I think things could have been resolved better and snappier, so to speak. It dragged. It really did. So on the fences about recommending this book. It's written really well. I thought the writing was done very well. It is engaging. I will give the book that credit, but it just dragged. There's no other way to say it. It just dragged. So that's that book. All right, the next thing that's going to make a lot of noise because I'm going to tip it up because it's a board game is Dimensions. So I think my wife got this for me for my birthday. And it's basically a game where you have 3 different balls. You have 15 balls, and you have 3 sets of 5. So there's white, blue, green, orange, and black. Okay. And so you put them in these kind of trays in front of you. And then you draw 6 cards, and the 6 cards basically define rules. Like a blue ball can't touch an orange ball, or an orange ball has to be on top of all the other balls in your stack. So the biggest stack you can make is 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, that's the most you can have in a stack is 11. And some of the cards may contradict, so you may not be able to satisfy all the rules. And then you just have to pick the best way to stack them. So you basically play for a minute. There's a timer, but we were just, it was the timer in it was not the best, these little sand timers. So we discovered that it was about a minute. So we give ourselves a minute to go through the 6 cards, and you're trying to beat the clock. After a minute's up, you stop, you get points for as many balls as you had in your stack. Okay? And then you got to go through your cards and say, okay, did I satisfy this rule? If yes, you get a point. There are these tokens, 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, I believe. So you start with, I think, 10 tokens. Okay. So if you satisfy the rule, you get a token. If you don't, you have to give 2 back. Okay. If you were able to put 11 balls in your stack and satisfy all the rules, you get a bonus token. And that matters because at the end of the game, if you didn't get any, you have to give 6 tokens back. If you only got 1, you have to give 3. If you get 2, you have to give nothing back. If you get 4 or something, you actually get tokens. So it's worth it to try to get as many bonus tokens as possible. And then basically whoever gets the highest score wins. I think ties then are broken by who had the most bonuses and then something else. I enjoyed this. My wife and I have played it now a couple times. It's simple. It's like, it seems a little overwhelming when you're putting all the stuff together, but once you have all the tokens punched out of the cardboard things and you realize what the rules are, it actually ends up being pretty simple. But it's fun. I found it to be quite a fun game to play. So yeah, highly recommend it, especially in these times where people are looking for lots of things to do. If you can order it somewhere and you can get it delivered to your house, I would recommend this game. It's definitely a fun game to play. Especially, it's not like one of those games where you have to just sit. You do have to think. There's an intellectual aspect to this, but there's also a time box on this. So it's not like some games where you can just sit there and think and think and think. You actually have to think about all the combinations and how you're going to stack them. So yeah, definitely recommend it. Okay, again, saving the best for last. This is the book that I read in this month, and it's called Aliens Phalanx. I hope I say that second word right. I keep stumbling across that word. It's by Scott Sigler, who is an author that I've read many books from. I've never read his GFL series, primarily just because I kind of fell out of being a fan, fell out of a fan of being football. And so I kind of went, I don't know if I'm interested in this, but I'm starting to rethink that. So I might go and find all of his books and see if I can buy them and read them and see what they're like. My wife and my older son have actually now read his infection, contagious, and pandemic books at this time. Yeah, that was a great idea. I like his writing. I like his style. I like what he does. And this book is no different. It's set in the alien universe. It's on a planet called Edagina. Hopefully I say that right. And it's an isolated world of medieval castles and rich cultures, vibrant until the demons rose and slaughtered 90% of the planet's populations. So they call the xenomorphs demons. And they're basically all in these strongholds on this continent, and they have people that are runners to run back and forth between them and do it in a way so that they're not taken by the demons and turned into demons via the spiders. And so what's really interesting to me is if like you stripped the cover off the book and you just handed it to somebody and you like took all the verbiage away of it being aliens and you gave it to somebody to read, it's just a good book, completely out of that universe. I don't want to say too much, but near the end of the book, it really becomes blatantly obvious that this is an aliens or an alien universe book. So I won't say why, but that becomes obvious. But the way that they describe these things, that they're demons and that they're tooth tongues, maybe the descriptions you start to realize it's a xenomorph, but it not necessarily. And I found that really interesting. It is a little confusing, and I don't know how I missed it, but like the history of the planet. I don't want to give away too much here, but how it actually came to be, how it got populated, how things started falling apart. I feel like I missed something, and like I didn't put two and two together there. So I need to go look up somewhere and see if they explain kind of exactly what really happened. But the author, Scott, actually says in the beginning to not give it away for people. Don't post spoilers online, which I get. I mean, I think it's, I don't mind people that have sites that like talk about a whole book or something like, or movie, something like that, and has all the spoilers and thoughts in there, as long as it's very explicit to say this is spoiler alert, don't read farther if you don't want to be spoiled, and I'm okay with that. It's when somebody just says blah and then you don't know that was coming and you're like, well, that just ruined it for me. That's what I think we should avoid. I do want to go through though and see if there's a site somewhere that talks more about the details of the book. But that's a minor quibble, and it's not even the author's fault. I might have just not really truly understood what was going on. I am biased to aliens books to some degree, but Scott Sigler, when I heard that he was writing a book in this universe, I was like, oh, I gotta get this. I bet it's going to be a killer, and it is. It was really well done. I think I read somewhere too that he said, he's got his Mount Fitzroy book, which is the second after Earth Core, which I've been really looking forward to. I haven't read. I have the original Earth Core book, and then I got his modified one, and I heard he was writing a sequel to it, so I'm like, no, I gotta wait, because I don't like it when authors just keep adding books, because I will forget everything. So, I've been waiting for Mount Fitzroy to come out, and he said basically put everything on hold because he got this opportunity. He was like, this was just a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He's like, I can't pass this up, and I've got to do this. So kudos to him, because I'm glad he did. It was a fun book, and I would hope that because there's definitely the possibility there of writing kind of a prequel book, or maybe even a sequel or something else in this world. So we'll see. I don't know if you ever will, but it was fun to read. Highly recommend it. So that's everything I have for March 2020. Given that we all have a lot of time, maybe I'll do more. I just finished a book in a trilogy, and now I'm reading a quite hardcore science book, so that's becoming kind of a slog to get through. I'm actually not reading everything in the book. I'm trying to just get the gist of it, because when I review the book, you'll understand why. But just because, I'll leave on this note. Everybody's pretty much in quarantine, isolation, physical distancing and everything else. And I saw a tweet a couple days ago where somebody basically said, if you don't come out of this with a new skill or something else, then you really didn't use your time wisely. And I just read that and I went, for somebody like me, who basically works from home a lot anyway, and my kids are 15 and 13, and they're more self-sufficient, I don't have to hover over them every second. But for people that just maybe had kids, or their kids are younger, and now they've never worked from home, and this is not vacation time. In fact, this can be extremely stressful for families. So when I read that, I kind of said, no, that some people, in fact, more than that, are actually struggling to figure out how to do everything in a day now, because everything's just been flipped, and just the fear to some degree of COVID-19. So that being said, in my particular situation, yes, I have more time. So I'm trying to use that, like getting all the drums updated. I have a super secret project I'm going to start working on today. I've got to actually do more of my coding videos. So I have more time, but whatever time you do have, use it for, if you do have extra time, if you are in that boat, then yes, I would say try to, take your mind off of things at times and focus on other stuff, because it can get depressing these days. I understand that completely. So to everybody, just hopefully try to support each other as much as we can, and try to do different things and see what you can use with whatever time you have right now. So thank you all for watching, and I will be back with an April video at the end of this month, which is now April. So see you then.